G'day, hospitality business leader tribe. Welcome to another Future of Hospitality almost daily live. I'm doing these most weekdays except Mondays, when we tend to have a strategy masterclass or an insights briefing. So welcome. We're talking about price as a strategic weapon being used in response to rising prices, but also increasingly importantly, being used in response to falling revenues. So we've got this real issue in the industry at the moment where we've got cost prices, particularly food and energy, rising significantly, very, very quickly. So as we know from first-hand experience, these costs are going through the roof. Now, it's taken a little while for most players, not all, but most business leaders in this industry to learn how to push prices up in response to cost prices going up. So suppliers are putting prices up to us, and suddenly we've got to do something, right? So there's still, I've got to say, talking to lots of hospitality business leaders out there all through the week, every week, there are lots of people who haven't moved price at all. And there are people who've been moving price from a few months ago and following, just passing on price increases. So what I want to try and get across is the concept of looking at this strategically and breaking down the way we respond to cost price increases in a way that isn't going to eventually have all your customers leave. So customers are going to, for a period of time, they're going to accept that you put some prices up. But once you've been doing that for a while, they're actually going to walk. They're just going to walk. A lot of your customers are going to go and try and find better value for money somewhere else. Now, they might not get it, but they're actually going to go and look for it. And when they go and look for it, they're not going to be spending that money with you. And this is my concern at the moment. So for several months ago, 6 months ago, 12 months ago, 18 months ago, I've been working with my clients to make sure they're always monitoring cost prices and the market around them. It's just part of the strategy that I put in place with clients. So they're always actively managing price. And what in the last few months, clearly, as cost prices have gone up through the roof, we've put in processes to understand what's going up, how it's impacting different dishes and some to some degree drinks, but mainly food prices. And we've put strategies in place to make sure we're passing most of that through. Now, for those of my clients who I've been doing that with over the last few months, we're now looking at not doing just a straight pass-through of cost prices and redesigning menus. We're looking at innovation as a response now. So passing cost price increases on for a while is definitely part of the strategy. But you can only do it for so long. There's only so much somebody's going to pay for a bowl of spaghetti bolognese before they actually go and look for something else. Now, the key objective that we've got is that we retain our customers, the existing customers who are putting money into our cash registers, our point of sale systems, paying electronically, which is what most people are doing these days. And what we want to do is retain them. So our strategies are all about achieving that objective of retaining customers. Now, if we really want to retain customers, we're going to try and avoid pissing them off by putting the price of a bowl of spaghetti bolognese up to such a degree that they just don't want to pay that amount of money for that dish anymore. So if you haven't yet started passing costs through, you've got to do it, otherwise you're going to go bust. Or the person you're working for is going to go bust. And even the big groups, right, who are they've got resources in head office who are generally on top of this stuff. But if you're a multi-site group that's not necessarily a huge group, and you're lean in your head office resource, and you have driven pricing from the center and not decentralized at the venue level, then you've got to come up with a strategy that's actually going to retain customers. Otherwise, your revenues are going to drop. Now, what I want to show you is some supporting information, some supporting data that helps you understand what's actually going on here. So let's just have a look at this for a second. So this is on the left-hand side. These are most of the challenges. Now we cover these at the monthly insights briefing in a bit more detail, but these are the challenges on the left-hand side that are hitting us. The tsunami that's approaching, and we haven't got there yet. So if you're in pain, believe me, that pain isn't anything like the pain level that you've yet to experience. But we're going to have on the other side of this tsunami, we're going to have a high rate of business failure. We're going to have a lot of businesses that are merely surviving, and we're going to have a very small number of businesses that are thriving. Now, it's the reason I set up Future of Hospitality is to try and help as many hospitality business leaders as possible avoid failure, certainly survive, and in the main, the people that I work with and the people that are engaging with the strategies that I'm talking about in these daily lives, in the newsletter, and in the monthly insights briefings, are more likely to be the businesses that thrive. And the tsunami that I'm describing here is, sadly, I believe, going to be absolutely destructive to our industry. And if we don't actually start to take some action, not only at an individual business level, but at a political level, our politicians it's just a talk shop. And we'll get onto that in some other briefings over the next week or so about how we can actually start to make demands of our elected representatives, by the way, whose salaries just go up year after year while everybody else is really not necessarily in the same lucky position. Right, so so these are the challenges, right? Now what's happening at the moment is so this is some data from McKinsey's. Now what you're seeing here is a period of time from the beginning of the pandemic to now. And you can see the grayed out area on the left-hand side of this is how the industry declined. Our industry declined during the pandemic. Clearly, when venues get closed down by government, there's a big decline, and you can see that. The dark black line, or the dark black line, black line is the average of all industries, basically. So hospitality, you can see, was affected and impacted more than the average of all industries. And then the blue is the moment restrictions were lifted and people could come back out again into venues and venues were open. That's the growth level that hospitality venues experienced. So you can see that there was this massive surge of people coming out and wanting to have a good time. Wanting to eat out, wanting to have drinks with friends, wanting to have coffees and all sorts of other things in their regular places that they weren't necessarily allowed to do during restrictions. And the black line continues and shows the average of all industries. What you can see is that we had this massive surge, which was around about October 2021. And what's happened more recently is it's dying off. And it's dying off because of rising prices, and discretionary spend of consumers is falling. So we've got this tsunami effect. We've got this perfect storm. We've got cost prices rising, and in the industry, we're starting to put prices up. Some people have been doing that for some time. And we're getting to a point where those increasing prices are actually having an impact on whether people go out or not. So discretionary spend's falling because of everything else that people are paying extra for. And we're putting our prices up as well for customers who are using their discretionary spend, which is reducing, to come and spend money in our venues. So we've got to really rethink the way we do business. And we've got to have different strategies in place to be able to succeed in times like this. Now, again, just to support what I'm advocating, this is research. It's in Europe, and what it shows is, and this is general shopping for food. So what it's telling us is that 25% of consumers in a 3-month period that the survey covered, it asked, I think it was in June or July, they asked what consumers had done in the previous 3 months. And 1 in 4 supermarket, hypermarket, grocery store, convenience store customers had switched to a discounting store, away from their regular brand to a discounting store. If people are doing this with food and their essential spend budget, what do you think is going to happen going forward in their discretionary spend? I'll tell you what's going to happen. This is going to happen. And the data tells us that it's exactly what is happening. Now, if we want empty venues at a time when our energy costs are going to be higher than rent, we've got to actually take some really serious strategic action. Now, the people that are at the top of our tree, the experts around the world, have got inflation, which is rising prices, so wrong, it's untrue. They forecast it so wrong. So this is a chart. This is a June chart. It's only a few weeks old, and it's already way out of date. I just haven't seen a more recent one published, and I think they can't keep up with the level of change in the rate of inflation. So this shows you countries on the left-hand side, obviously. The line is the level of inflation they were at for a 12-month period up until June. And the little circle that you'll see in the line is where they forecast inflation to be just 6 months earlier. So you can see Lithuania's at the top. It had the highest inflation. This will be different now. It had the highest inflation level at the end of June, and it was over between 15 and 16%. And only 6 months earlier, their central bank people, their economic experts, had predicted that inflation would be just over 3%. How far can they get it wrong? How way out can they be on their forecasting? The UK, which at the end of June was around about 9%, was forecast to be just over 4% 6 months earlier. Now, for October, they're forecasting the UK to be 13%, and by the end of the year, they're forecasting it to be 18%. Now, the experts who have paid a lot of money to work this stuff out. This is the Bank of England. This is the Bank of England, run by the governor of the Bank of England, who's paid £575,000 a year to be the chief expert, this is how wrong he got it over the last few weeks. So each one of those lines is a revised forecast for inflation. Now you'll see that the most recent, I mean, this chart's 2 weeks old, 3 weeks old. You'll see that the the forecast that was made just literally 2 or 3 weeks ago was that inflation would peak at about 13%, and it was going to peak about 13% by October. And this forecast was made in August. That light green forecast is August. We are still just in August. So it's just a few weeks ago. The governor of the Bank of England, who's paying £575,000 a year, forecast that inflation would peak at 13% and it would fall within 12 months or so back to the normal 2 or 3%. Now, in the last 2 weeks, they've now come out and said inflation is likely to hit 18% by the end of the year. Now, the governor of the Bank of England is effectively the CEO of the Bank of England. And if any other CEO got forecasts this wrong, they'd resign and they'd be out of their jobs. They'd be gone. And somebody else who was more competent would come in. Now, I don't really want to necessarily give the governor of the Bank of England a hard time, but I will do, and I'll do it because of this reason. We are going to have so many businesses die in the next 12 to 24 months, and a lot of them before then. But the next 12 to 24 months is going to be a critical period for businesses that are just unable to hang on. Energy prices going up, double or treble, in some cases 500% increases in energy prices. The UK is ahead of Australia in energy price increases, but it's coming to a state near you. And when your energy is more expensive than your rent, you know you've got problems with just your overheads. Food inflation, food cost prices are forecast to have gone up 22% to 45% during 2022, during 1 year. Revenues are falling because customers' discretionary spend is reducing by a third to a half. A third to a half. Now, it depends on the market you're targeting, because if you're more of a community venue and you've got a lot more working people and blue collar trade, you might have a greater impact on disposable spend falling. We're in really, really dire times, and what's coming towards us is a tsunami. Now, there's an opportunity for lots of people, lots of hospitality business owners, business managers, multi-site group leaders, to turn some of these challenges into opportunities that can help them not only survive but thrive. But the vast majority of the industry isn't aware of what's coming, which is why I'm doing Future of Hospitality, which is why I'm trying to get these messages out, that we've just got to wake up to the reality of what's coming. Our politicians and our media are not telling you how bad this is going to be. What they'll do in a few months' time is tell you how bad it is when it's happened. Now, they know, the economists in government know what all these charts are saying about the impact on small to medium-sized companies. So companies employing up to a couple of hundred people. So it's individual independent businesses, whether you're the owner or the manager of that independent business, you'll be feeling some of this pain. You're more likely to be feeling some of this pain now. The smaller multi-site groups that are growing, that are run by owners still, you're going to be feeling this pain, and the politicians are not going to be there to help you. You're going to have to help yourself. You've got to take responsibility for the situation as it is now and what's about to happen. And you've got to put strategies in place in your businesses so that you can survive and thrive. Before COVID, I'll just get rid of this. Before COVID, 50% of businesses didn't survive more than their first 12 months. 80% never got to their 5th birthday, and less than 10% survived more than 10 years. That was before COVID. COVID then took out a whole tranche of businesses, which we know about. We know about friends and colleagues and the place down the road that just didn't survive. Now this is going to be worse than COVID, the restrictions that COVID put in, because the government's not going to be doing bailouts. They're not going to do that. And it's going to be worse than the GFC. And I don't say that lightly to anybody, because my biggest concern is that people's livelihoods are going to go, and there's going to be a huge amount of burnout with business leaders. There's going to be a huge amount of burnout with lots of other people too. And when tough stuff happens, it becomes stress rises, becomes harder to make clearer decisions, and we end up not necessarily making the best decisions and surviving challenging times like we're about to get. So, what can you do? Well, certainly pass some price increases on to maintain your margin. But you've got to innovate. You've got to look at different ways of doing business. You've got to redesign menus. You've got to redesign dishes. Because the big issue is retaining your existing customers, and the opportunity is in capturing all the customers that are leaving other people's venues to find better value for money. Value for money is going to be the thing that actually helps you thrive. So offering it to your existing customers is going to help retain them. And communicating it out to the marketplace that you've got the best value for money in your area is going to be the thing that actually helps you capture what are going to be an awful lot of customers actually looking for better value than they've been getting at their existing place, their existing favorite venue. Believe me, people are going to get to a point where they won't pay the price they're being charged, the increasing price they're being charged for their bowl of spaghetti bolognese. And they will just walk. Just like the supermarket data I showed you earlier, where 1 in 4 customers that had been loyal to a supermarket brand or a grocery brand had basically just decided in the last few months to go and use a discounter. Now, I don't advocate discounting in pricing because I think it's a dangerous game to get into. But what's going to happen is there are going to be a lot of people, a lot of operators out there will start to do crazy deals to try and get people in. They're going to be the deals that actually help them attract people. Now, it's not necessarily going to be great value for money that they offer, and they're often going to be in a desperate situation, and that's why they're doing it. But your customers who have just got a bit sick of paying what you're charging them for the bowl of spaghetti bolognese, that's now 50% or 100% more expensive than it was a year or two ago, they're going to be seeing these deals coming up. So you've got to hold on to your existing customers. You've got to put strategies in place that help to retain them. And those same strategies that help retain your existing customers are going to be the draw card for you to actually bring new customers in, which you're going to need because your revenues are going to fall. And unless this is for most, not all, but most of the businesses in the industry. Revenues are going to fall. If you're still experiencing the surge of trade from after COVID restrictions, good on you. And if you've already got an incredible dynamic value for money offering, then you're going to thrive as long as it stays dynamic, and as long as you continue to dance with the external environment, you're going to thrive. You've got more chance of thriving, let's put it that way. But I really, I'm so angry with our political leaders who are playing deaf, dumb, and blind to what's going on, and the talk fests that are happening at the moment in Australia, in the UK, are talk fests. That's it. They're not coming to save you. They are not coming to save you. You have to take responsibility for saving yourself. Now, it's a tough message today, and I expect, having done this now for 4 or 5, 6, coming up to 6 months, been pushing the message that there are some big challenges coming around the corner, and identifying what those challenges have been months ahead of them hitting. I am really sending out a strong message over the next few weeks that nobody is coming to save you. You've got to save yourself, and you've got to actually change the way. Not all of you, the vast majority of you though, have got to look at a different way, innovate your offerings. You've got to focus on retaining existing customers through amazing value for money, amazing service when we all know that there are staff shortages, but there won't be for long. Not because the staff shortage problem is going to be solved with extra staff. What's actually going to happen is there are going to be less businesses open. There are going to be less businesses alive. And the staff from the businesses that die will start to fill the vacancies in the businesses that survive. So that's all that's going to happen. But the systemic staff shortages, I forecast, will disappear over the next 3 to 12 months as more businesses fail. This is serious shit. I don't know how to shout this message any louder than I am, through the daily briefings, through the weekly newsletters, through the monthly briefings. Government is not going to come and help you. It's not going to save you. Industry associations are talking to government, and they're going to do their best. There's some good people working in industry associations, but they're also, to a degree, most of the industry associations are part of the political trying to be really careful what I say today, because we're not looking at very good times ahead. Small to medium-sized businesses, those of you who are up to a couple of 100 million turnover in Aussie dollars, 100 million pounds, 200 or so people, often independent businesses, small multi-site groups, please take care of yourselves. Please stay in touch through the briefings, stay in touch through the weekly newsletters, subscribe to that. We've got 5,000 hospitality business leaders now subscribed into the newsletters, registering for the monthly briefings, and watching either the live dailies or watching the replays. Yeah, take care of yourselves. Look after your own well-being first, so that you can then look after everybody else's. See you tomorrow.